The 2020 Democratic presidential primary, it's heating up with New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand officially joining the field. But she failed to get a lot of attention as former Congressman Beto O'Rourke stole the spotlight. Who better talk about all of this than our brand new Fox News contributor, Donna Brazile, former chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee and co-author of the new book, For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Politics. Let me be the first to welcome you, Donna, to the Fox family. We're delighted you're here. You have written an op-ed that is on foxnews.com, which I encourage everyone to go and look at, because this was a bold move for you and for Fox. Your thoughts?
It really is, and as you know, I'm no stranger to this network. I've been on and off Fox for the last 15 years, but this is an opportunity to reach across the aisle, to reach even within my own political party and to independents and others who might want to hear what's happening within the Democratic Party, what's happening in the country, and of course, hear my perspective. During the Lenten season, I try to give up something that I enjoy, and I try to do something different. And I decided I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I want to talk to people. I want to listen. I want to reach out. I want to do so in civility. And most of all, I want to be able, as a Democrat and a progressive and a liberal, to talk to the Fox family, because they're Americans and they care about many of the same issues and concerns that I have.
You've been friends with a lot of folks for a long time, of course, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, me, Karl Rove, but others too. You've been a co-host on The Five when you filled in once or twice for Juan Williams. So you're no stranger to it. But one of the things you said in your op-ed I thought was very interesting was something that your mom taught you when you were a little girl, because you grew up with a big family.
Yeah, I'm the third of 9 children, a big Catholic household, and she used to tell me, shut up, Donna, listen to your younger brothers or sisters, or listen to your older sisters. And of course, sometimes you just have to take a step back and listen. But most importantly, I think this is a critical period in our country. It's a time for dialogue, it's a time for civility, but most of all, it's a time for openness. And we're not going to get ahead by yelling at each other or sending nasty tweets.
Okay, well, we'll move on then to the big story, because I'm excited to be able to talk to you about the Democratic 2020 primary. It's a huge story. And just this week, it's like every weekend this year since 2019 started, there's a new Democratic candidate every weekend. This past weekend, Kirsten Gillibrand, she announced that she's officially running, but it was Beto O'Rourke who really stole a lot of the show. And here's a picture of his crowds versus crowds for Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota up there. And I just wonder what your thoughts are about this. It was announced that Beto O'Rourke raised $6.1 million in his first day, and I think we have some of these numbers showing what others have raised. He's right just ahead of Bernie Sanders. And take a listen to what Senator Amy Klobuchar said on Meet the Press about whether she was actually born to do this, of course referring to what Beto O'Rourke told Vanity Fair.
Do you feel born to do this?
Oh, that's the Beto line.
It was the Beto line, but
okay.
You brought it up. I'm just curious.
No, I will say that, you know, I have a lot of respect for Beto, and it's great to have some Texas in this race. But no, I wasn't born to run for office, just because growing up in the 70s in the middle of the country, I don't think many people thought a girl could be president. I wasn't born to run, but I am running.
And Beto O'Rourke also said this weekend, Donna, that if he were to get the nomination, he would choose a woman as his vice president. So I'd like your thoughts on those developments over the weekend.
First of all, welcome to the race. This is a very large and exciting field. We have so many dynamic candidates on the Democratic side, whether they come from big states like Texas or California, or small states like, of course, Vermont. We have, I think, inside the Democratic Party, a very experienced crop of candidates who bring what I think a lot of missing ingredients to the public table. We're going to hear from them over the course of the next few months as they go out there and make their case to the American people. But there's one thing we should understand, especially what I see in the Democratic Party, is that small dollar donors are fueling this. They are engaged. They're excited about these candidates. The fact that Mr. Beto O'Rourke Robert Francis O'Rourke, I like to call him Congressman, the fact that he could raise so much money in 24 hours, it just shows you that there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of enthusiasm, And I think this is a party that is caffeinated and ready to come out the wilderness and reclaim the White House in 2020.
Well, one of the things, obviously, it's going to be a tough race. It's going to be close, we believe. Okay, you believe that. I know you believe that. It's going to be close. Listen to what Sydney Holland, she was an Iowa student, so she said this over the weekend, University of Iowa. I wanted to hear Beto O'Rourke personally, and he delivered. He was down to earth, so humble. I can tell that he cares about each and every one of us. And I just want to contrast that with some poll numbers from President Trump on Quinnipiac University just last week, saying, on the question, do you think President Trump cares about average Americans or not? 39% said yes, 58% said no. Perhaps not determinative of who ends up winning an election, but how do you turn those numbers around if you're President Trump? And do you think that something like what Beto can do, it sounds really good, but the details are a little loose?
I think the American people, they want leadership. They want someone who's not only compassionate, but who empathize with their plight. And one of the things that President Trump was able to do in 2016 was to reach those voters who felt like they belonged on the outskirts of hope. And he said, I will fight for you. I'm going to bring your jobs back. That's why you see him today reaching out to the chair of General Motors. The president has to continue to focus on the promises he made to the American people. But I think what Democrats will offer is a new path, a new direction, with policies that will lift everybody up and give everyone, whether you're working for or part of the middle class, a fair shot and a fair chance.
My last question for you, I just want to take you to look, let's replay this from the weekend. This is Chelsea Clinton being, approached and attacked by some people who disagreed with her. Watch this.
I'm so sorry. Well, certainly it was never my intention. I do believe words matter. I believe we have to show
We do matter. And this right here is the result of a massacre stoked by people like you and the words that you put out into the world. And I want you to know that, and I want you to feel that deep inside. 49 people died because of the rhetoric that you put out there.
All right, that was obviously tempers running pretty hot. But what do you do, Donna, when you have the Democratic Party, fighting about anti-Semitism within its own party?
We're Democratic Party, and by the way, I was campaign manager for Al Gore, and as you well know, the vice president chose Joe Lieberman. I think we have to lower the temperature, lower the rhetoric. We need to stop yelling at each other. There's no question that we're a big tent party, but we do not in any way tolerate any forms of bigotry, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, racism. We're not going to allow these isms to divide us or distract us from what we would like to accomplish as Americans. Let me just say this on a personal note. Chelsea Clinton is a woman of valor, and I admired her courage and the way that she was composed during that entire process. But she is a leader, and I also believe that she's a healer.
All right. Well, Donna Brazile, again, welcome to Fox News. Delighted to have you. We look forward to having you again. And next time you come to the 5, you got to bring us something to eat.
I'm bringing you some gumbo. And by the way, this was my debut, not debut.
Okay. All right, debut. All right.
B-O-O.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's bring in former U.S. Attorney Guy Lewis, joining us live there. Thanks for being with us today on this St. Patrick's Day. So I want to ask you first, the only person, as we just heard Molly say, the only person to see the final report is Attorney General William Barr. His office knows what the vote so far in Congress has been and how the president feels about it. What do you predict is going to happen with this information? He's indicated he'll release some, but will he release all?
I think I take him at his word when he testified at his confirmation hearings that he's going to do everything he can to release it. So I think you're going to see a large report that sort of connects the dot here in terms of how Mueller started and where we are now.
All right. Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But a lot of people obviously, pushing for as much information as we can get out of this. I want to pivot here and talk about the former Trump campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. A lot of news this week. Just minutes after Manafort heard his sentence in the federal case, Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. announced a 16-count indictment on a year-long residential mortgage fraud scheme. We were reporting on this in New York this week, which included conspiracy, falsifying business records, and on it went. He could get 138 years if convicted on these new state charges. So I wanted to ask you what you think will happen here, because these charges will stand even if the president pardons him on the federal case. This we know. But what do you make of the New York charges?
I think for the most part that it was grandstanding. I mean, in my experience, having done this for almost 40 years now, you almost never see a guy prosecuted once in Virginia, a second time in D.C., and then a third time up in New York in a state jurisdiction. So, yes, while the president may have limited pardon power as it relates to the state charges, New York also has a double jeopardy clause in their Constitution. So I think they got big problems in terms of the charges up in New York. I don't think they're going to stand.
You don't think they're going to stand? I mean, these are a lot of charges and a lot of time he's looking at if convicted. What if it's just a portion of those? You know, a lot of people are discussing this week, asking if Cy Vance has a problem with this double jeopardy issue, or if Paul Manafort, you know, is he still up against the wall with a new case because the state charges have substantially different victims?
Having sat down and done these kind of cases where, as a federal prosecutor, when I was U.S. attorney, sometimes you'd see a state prosecution and it wouldn't turn out. Say in a civil rights case, it was just really a miscarriage of justice. And so you'd look at it and you'd say, you know what, we need to prosecute. You look at Manafort here, and to be honest, the guy's almost 70 years old. He's going to do about a little more than 8 years in jail. Really, what is the justification for charging them in state court, especially when the charges, for the most part, overlap and are virtually the same thing?
Right. Well, and he obviously talked to the judge about that, asking for the judge to consider his age, where he's been at in his life and with his family. So, you know, we'll see how this moves on with the case in New York. Guy Lewis, I want to thank you for your time, for being here and lending your expertise. Thank you so much.
Got it. Glad to.